The red warning light blinked steadily in the communications center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Nobody had seen anything like the signal before. It came from outside the solar system, broadcasting on every frequency known to human science. The message was simple, direct, and terrifying. Lieutenant Davis wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared at the translation on his screen. 3 days of work by Earth's best linguists had finally decoded the alien language. He wished they had failed. Admiral Hayes needs to see this immediately, he told his supervisor. 30 minutes later, Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood in the same room, reading the same message. Her face showed no emotion, but her knuckles were white as she gripped the printout. The message was an ultimatum from something called the Galactic Dominion. They claimed to rule 12 star systems and 47 conquered species. Earth had 30 rotations of their homeworld to surrender completely, submit to colonial rule, relocate the human population to designated zones, and hand over all planetary resources. The alternative was total extinction. How long is 30 rotations? Hayes asked. Based on their astronomical data, about 42. Earth days, replied Dr. Mitchell, the head linguist. Hayes nodded slowly. She had been preparing for this moment her entire military career, though she never really believed it would come. First contact with hostile aliens, every war game, every strategic planning session, every nightmare scenario had led to this moment. What do we know about them? She asked. Dr. Mitchell pulled up another file. They call themselves the Dominion. From what we can understand, they have conquered 47 other intelligent species. Each conquest followed the same pattern. Send the ultimatum, wait for surrender, move in, and take control. If the species refuses, they use overwhelming force to destroy all resistance. How long have they been watching us? Unknown. But they know our population numbers, major cities, military installations. They have been studying us for some time. Hayes walked to the window overlooking the underground facility. Hundreds of people worked at their stations, completely unaware that humanity's future was being decided in this room. Get me President Collins on the secure line, she ordered. The next 6 hours were chaos, emergency sessions of the United Nations, heated debates between world leaders. Some wanted to surrender immediately, others demanded they fight. Most were simply paralyzed by fear. Hayes sat in on the video conferences, watching politicians argue while precious time ticked away. She had seen enough combat to know what was coming. The Dominion had not conquered 47 species by being merciful to those who resisted. We need to evacuate the major cities, she told President Collins during a brief break. That would cause mass panic, Collins replied. We are still hoping for a diplomatic solution. There is no diplomatic solution. This is not a negotiation. It is a surrender demand. Collins looked tired. He had aged 10 years in the last 6 hours. What do you recommend? Hayes had been thinking about this since she first read the message. We implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was theoretical. It had never been tested on a large scale. The basic idea was simple. If faced with an enemy that was technologically superior, change the rules of engagement. Make them fight on your terms, not theirs. That protocol assumes we can hide our entire population, Collins said. We have been building the underground networks for 60 years. Since the Cold War ended, we redirected the bunker programs. Every major city has deep shelters. Rural areas have cave systems and mountain complexes. It can be done. And then what? Wait underground forever? Hayes smiled for the first time that day. It was not a pleasant smile. Then we teach them what humans do best. Which is? We make war. The president stared at her. Against an enemy that has conquered 47 species? Those 47 species fought like civilized beings. They probably had rules of war. Honor codes, military targets only, clean battles between armies. Hayes leaned forward. They have never fought humans. Over the next 36 hours, the most massive evacuation in human history began. It was disguised as emergency drills, training exercises, and routine civil defense programs. Families were moved to underground shelters. Essential personnel relocated to hardened facilities. Military units dispersed to hidden bases. The public was told it was preparation for possible alien contact. The truth was carefully managed. Panic was avoided, but only barely. Hayes spent those hours in the deepest command center on Earth. Banks of computers showed the evacuation progress. Green lights indicated areas that were ready. Red lights showed places that still needed work. On the Yaixu, final day of the ultimatum, she received the Dominion's second message. They had detected the evacuations. The message was shorter than the first. Preparations for resistance have been observed. This will be noted. Surrender now or face complete annihilation. This is your final warning. Hayes dictated humanity's response. It was even shorter. Come and take it. The words were broadcast on the same frequencies the Dominion had used. Every human facility, every satellite, every communications array sent the same three-word message into space. 12 hours later, long-range sensors detected the Dominion fleet approaching the outer solar system. 3,000 ships carrying 50 million soldiers. The largest invasion force in galactic history was coming to Earth. Hayes looked around the command center. Every person at every station knew what was coming. They also knew what they had to do. All units, this is command, she announced. The enemy is approaching. Remember your training. Remember why we are fighting. They think we are just another species to be conquered. They think we will surrender when we see their numbers. She paused, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Millions of years of human evolution, thousands of years of warfare, centuries of technological progress. It all came down to the next few weeks. They are about to learn what happens when you threaten Earth, what happens when you threaten humanity. They wanted war with us. The command center was completely silent. 3,000 enemy ships were approaching, carrying enough firepower to destroy entire continents. But nobody looked afraid. They are going to get exactly what they asked for. The Dominion fleet arrived at Earth like a metal storm. Supreme Commander Rax watched from his flagship as 3,000 vessels took positions around the small blue planet. In 400 years of conquest, he had never needed such a large force. Most species surrendered at the sight of 100 ships. Sir, we are detecting no orbital defenses, reported his tactical officer. No military satellites, no weapons platforms. Their primitive spacecraft have been withdrawn to their moon. Rax nodded with satisfaction. The evacuation they had detected was clearly a full retreat. The humans had abandoned their world rather than face the Dominion. It would make the occupation easier. Begin bombardment of major population centers. Target their capitals first. When they see their cities burning, any remaining resistance will collapse. The first wave of plasma bombardment struck New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow simultaneously. Massive explosions lit up the planet's surface, but something was wrong. The thermal readings showed empty buildings burning. Sir, casualty estimates are extremely low. The cities appear to have been evacuated. Rax frowned. All of them? Yes, sir. We are detecting minimal life signs in any major urban area. This was unusual, but not unprecedented. Some species had attempted to hide their populations before. It only delayed the inevitable. Launch the ground assault. Find where they are hiding. 2 million Dominion soldiers descended to Earth in heavily armored transports. They landed in the smoking ruins of human cities, expecting to find cowering survivors. Instead, they found empty streets and abandoned buildings. Colonel Vex led the 1st Battalion into what remained of New York City. His soldiers moved cautiously through the debris, scanning for human life signs. Their equipment showed scattered readings, but nothing concentrated enough to indicate major population centers. This is strange, Vex told his lieutenant. Where? Did 40 million humans go? They got their answer 6 hours later. Private First Class Tom Wilson had been waiting in the subway tunnels for 3 days. He was 19 years old, from a small town in Ohio, and until last week his biggest worry was passing his college finals. Now he was crouched in the darkness with 50 pounds of explosives, waiting for alien invaders to walk over his head. The vibrations through the tunnel walls told him the enemy was moving in formation down Broadway. Wilson checked his watch. Right on schedule. He had memorized the timing perfectly during training. He pressed the detonator. 6 city blocks of carefully placed charges detonated simultaneously. Buildings that had been evacuated and prepared collapsed. In sequence, creating a chain reaction of destruction that buried 300 Dominion soldiers under millions of tons of rubble. Wilson was already running through the maintenance tunnels when the explosions started. Behind him, similar attacks were happening across the city. The humans had not abandoned Earth. They had turned it into a trap. Colonel Vex pulled himself from the wreckage of what used to be a department store. Half his battalion was dead or missing. The humans had somehow brought down an entire section of the city in a coordinated attack. Command, we are under attack by unknown forces. Requesting immediate support. What do you mean, unknown forces? Are there human military units? In the city. Vex looked around at the destruction. I do not know what attacked us. The explosions came from underground, from the buildings themselves. It was like the city was designed to kill us. Similar reports came in from London, Beijing, Moscow, and every other major city the Dominion had targeted. Thousands of soldiers were dead, but the humans remained invisible. Supreme Commander Rack studied the battlefield reports with growing confusion. Every conquered species had followed predictable patterns. First contact, ultimatum, either surrender or direct military confrontation. The humans seemed to be doing something completely different. Sir, we have identified some of the attack methods, his intelligence officer reported. The humans have placed explosive devices throughout their urban areas. But these are not standard military weapons. They are using improvised devices. Fertilizer bombs, fuel-air explosives made from common materials. Improvised devices? Yes, sir. It appears they have weaponized their entire infrastructure. Roads, bridges, buildings, even vehicles left behind in the evacuation. Everything is booby-trapped. Rax had conquered species with advanced technology, sophisticated military tactics, and powerful weapons. He had never encountered an enemy that turned their own cities into weapons. The attacks continued for days. Dominion patrols would enter seemingly abandoned areas and disappear. Sometimes there were explosions. Sometimes soldiers simply vanished, leaving only traces of blood and strange marks on walls. Lieutenant Maria Santos had been a police officer in Los Angeles before the invasion. Now she led a team of 15 civilians through the storm drains, beneath the city. They had been moving for 6 hours, following intelligence reports about alien patrol routes. Target is 2 blocks north, she whispered into her radio. Single squad, 12 hostiles, moving east on Sunset Boulevard. Santos and her team emerged from manholes at precisely calculated positions. They were not soldiers. Her team included a high school teacher, a mechanic, a nurse, and a retired accountant. But they all knew how to use the weapons they carried. The alien patrol never saw them coming. 12 Dominion soldiers died in less than 30 seconds. Santos and her team were back underground before the bodies stopped moving. Command, this is Reaper Team 7. Package delivered. Returning to base. Admiral Hayes monitored the reports from her command center. The first week of occupation had cost the Dominion over 200,000 soldiers. Human casualties were minimal. The evacuation had worked perfectly. Admiral, we are receiving communications intercepts from the enemy fleet, her communications officer reported. Hayes listened to the translated conversations between Dominion commanders. Confusion, frustration, fear. They had expected to fight a conventional military force. Instead, they were fighting shadows. "They keep asking where our army is," the officer noted. Hayes smiled grimly. "Tell them the truth. Everyone is the army." This was the difference the Dominion had not anticipated. Every previous species they had conquered made distinctions between soldiers and civilians, military targets and non-combatants. The humans had no such distinctions. 8-year-old Amy Rodriguez had been practicing piano when the aliens invaded. Now, she sat in a tunnel beneath Phoenix, Arizona, operating a drone control system. The adults had taught her how to use it in just 2 days. Children learn technology faster than anyone else. "I can see the bad guys," she told her handler, a former Air Force pilot named Peterson. "How many, Amy?" 20. "They are walking toward the school." Peterson nodded. The school had been prepared like every other building. But Amy could do more than just trigger explosives. Her small fingers were perfect for the delicate controls of the miniaturized attack drones. "Light them up, kiddo." Amy pressed the buttons she had been taught to use. On the surface, 6 tiny drones descended from hidden positions and attached themselves to alien soldiers. The micro-explosives were small, but perfectly placed. "Got them all," Amy reported cheerfully. "Can I get a juice box now?" Supreme Commander. Rax stared at the casualty reports. In 1 week of occupation, he had lost more soldiers than in the conquest of the previous 5 species combined, and he still had no idea where the human military was located. "Sir, we have captured several humans during the attacks," his intelligence officer reported. "Excellent. What did they tell us during interrogation?" "That is the problem, sir. We cannot determine who are soldiers and who are civilians. The attackers include children, elderly individuals, and people from every profession. When we ask them about their military structure, they say everyone is military now." Rax felt something he had not experienced in 400 years of conquest: uncertainty. "Sir, there is something else. We intercepted a human communication this morning, a single word repeated on all frequencies." "What word?" "Welcome." Deep in the Montana wilderness, Captain Eddie Torres crouched behind a fallen tree and watched 12 alien soldiers march along what used to be Highway 2. They moved in perfect formation, their advanced armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. Professional. Disciplined. Predictable. Torres had been hunting for 18 years before the invasion. Deer, elk, bear, mountain lions. Now he was hunting something that could shoot back. The principles were the same. Know your prey. Know their patterns. Know their weaknesses. "They stop every 2 miles to scan for humans," he whispered to his partner, a former park ranger named Bill Clark. "Always the same formation. Always the same timing." Clark nodded and checked his rifle. It was not a military weapon, just a hunting rifle that had belonged to his grandfather. But it fired alien ammunition now, taken from previous kills. "Remember, headshots only," Torres said. "Their body armor can stop our bullets, but we tested their helmets yesterday." So, 2 men had been working together for 3 weeks. They had killed 47 aliens in that time, not in dramatic firefights or heroic battles, just patient, methodical hunting. Track the prey, wait for the perfect shot, kill cleanly, disappear. The alien patrol reached the designated spot right on schedule. Torres and Clark fired simultaneously. 2 aliens dropped instantly. The remaining 10 scattered for cover, but they had been trained to fight other soldiers in open combat. They had no idea how to fight hunters who knew every rock, tree, and hiding spot for 50 miles. Torres and Clark were already moving to their second position when the aliens started shooting back. By the time the enemy reached the spot where the shots had come from, the 2 humans were gone. Left behind were 2 more dead aliens and a simple message spray-painted on a tree. "Welcome to Earth." This scene was repeated thousands of times across every continent. The Dominion had expected to fight armies. Instead, they were fighting individuals who knew their home terrain perfectly. Dr. Lisa Wong had never held a weapon before the invasion. She was a computer programmer in San Francisco, working on video games and mobile apps. Now she sat in a hidden bunker beneath the city, surrounded by screens showing alien communication networks. "I am inside their tactical system," she told her team. Their encryption is actually pretty basic. They never expected anyone to try hacking their equipment. Wong had been working on the captured alien technology for 2 weeks. The Dominion used quantum communication networks that were supposed to be impossible to intercept. But they had made one mistake. They assumed no primitive species would understand quantum computing. "What can you see?" asked her supervisor, a former NSA analyst named Roberts. "Everything. Patrol routes, supply schedules, command communications. They are not even trying to hide their transmissions because they think we cannot read them." Wong pulled up a tactical display showing alien positions across North America. Red dots indicated enemy units. Green dots showed human resistance teams. The aliens were scattered across thousands of square miles, trying to hunt an enemy they could not find. "Look at this," Wong said, highlighting a pattern in the data. "They send supply convoys from their main base every 3 days. Same route. Every time. Heavy escort, but they follow the highway system because their vehicles are too big for back roads." Robert smiled. Wong had just identified the perfect target. 6 hours later, the Dominion supply convoy was moving through the Nevada desert, when the highway simply disappeared. Human engineers had spent 3 days carefully removing a half-mile section of road and replacing it with camouflaged canvas over a deep pit. The lead vehicles plunged into the trap at full speed. The convoy behind them stopped abruptly, trying to figure out what had happened. That was when the real attack began. Humans emerged from hidden positions in the rocks and hills around the highway. They were not soldiers in uniforms. They were mechanics, teachers, farmers, and retirees who had learned to use military weapons in the past month. But they fought with the desperate fury of people defending their home. The convoy was destroyed in 12 minutes. The humans took everything useful and disappeared back into the desert before alien reinforcements could arrive. It was the 17th. Successful ambush that week. Supreme Commander Rax read the reports in his command center aboard the flagship. The casualty numbers were impossible to believe. In 3 weeks of occupation, he had lost over 500,000 soldiers. The humans had not attempted to surrender even once. "Sir, we have analyzed the human tactics," his tactical officer reported. "They are not fighting like any species we have encountered before." Explain. Every other conquest followed predictable patterns. The enemy had military units that fought from bases. They tried to protect population centers. They had command structures we could target. The humans have none of these things. Rax studied the holographic display showing Earth. Red zones indicated areas under Dominion control. There were very few red zones. They have no central command, none that we can identify. Each attack appears to be planned and executed by small independent groups, sometimes just 2 or 3 individuals. When we destroy one group, it has no effect on the others. What about their military leadership? We cannot find it. Their attacks are coordinated, but we cannot determine how. It is as if their entire population thinks like soldiers. This was exactly what was happening. For 3 weeks, every human on Earth had been learning the same lessons. How to move without being detected. How to communicate without being intercepted. How to kill efficiently and disappear. 12-year-old Kevin Park sat in a basement in Seoul, South Korea, watching alien patrols through a scope attached to a sniper rifle. The rifle was taller than he was, but Kevin had always been good with video games. This was just another targeting system. "I can see 4 of them," he told his spotter, his grandmother, Mrs. Park. "Are you sure about the distance?" she asked in Korean. Kevin checked his calculations. His math teacher had spent 2 weeks teaching him ballistics. 830 meters, wind from the east at 15 kilometers per hour. Mrs. Park had been a nurse during the Korean War. She had seen enough death to know what was necessary. "Make it count!" Kevin fired once. 830 meters away, an alien soldier fell. The other three immediately took cover and began scanning for the shooter. But Kevin and his grandmother were already moving through the tunnel system beneath the city. Similar scenes played out in Moscow, where a former ballet dancer named Anna led ambush teams through the subway tunnels. In London, where a group of pensioners had turned their retirement community into a fortress. In Cairo, where children flew remote-controlled planes loaded with explosives into alien positions. The Dominion had conquered species with advanced technology and powerful militaries, but they had never fought an entire civilization that had decided to become predators. Colonel Vex limped through the ruins of what used to be Denver, Colorado. His battalion had been hunting human resistance fighters for 2 weeks. He had started with 800 soldiers. Now he had 93. The humans were ghosts. They appeared without warning, killed efficiently, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Vex had 40 years of military experience, but nothing had prepared him for this. His communications officer approached cautiously. "Sir, we have received new orders from command." "What now?" "We are to withdraw to defensive positions and wait for reinforcements." Vex laughed bitterly. Withdraw. The mighty Dominion was retreating from primitive humans with improvised weapons, and no formal military structure. "Sir, there is something else. Intelligence reports that human attacks have begun in our home systems." Vex stared at the officer. "What do you mean?" "Human ships have been detected attacking supply bases in the outer colonies. We do not know how they acquired interstellar capability so quickly." The truth was simpler than the Dominion could imagine. Humans had been studying captured alien technology for 3 weeks. While some humans fought on Earth, others had been learning to fly alien ships, hack alien computers, and turn alien weapons against their creators. Captain Torres finished burying the alien equipment he could not carry and headed back toward the mountain hideout his team called home. In his pack were alien weapons, communication devices, and technical manuals that human engineers were already learning to reverse engineer. He paused at the top of a ridge and looked down at the valley where alien forces were camped. Thousands of soldiers, hundreds of vehicles, enough firepower to destroy entire cities. But they were trapped in their fortified positions, afraid to venture out in small groups. Torres smiled and spoke into his radio using words that were being repeated. "By human fighters around the world. The hunt continues." The orbital bombardment began at dawn. Supreme Commander Rax had made his decision during the long, sleepless night aboard his flagship. 6 weeks of ground combat had cost him nearly 1 million soldiers with almost nothing to show for it. The humans refused to surrender, refused to negotiate, and seemed to multiply like a virus no matter how many were killed. "Sir, targeting coordinates are locked on the Colorado Mountain Complex," his weapons officer reported. "Long-range scans indicate a major human stronghold. Estimated population 50,000. Rax nodded grimly. Every rule of civilized warfare prohibited orbital bombardment of population centers. The Galactic Code of Conduct, which governed military actions across all 47 conquered species, specifically banned such attacks. But the humans had shown no regard for civilized warfare. Fire. The plasma beam struck the mountainside, with the force of a small star. Rock melted, tunnels collapsed, and everything within a 50-mile radius was reduced to burning glass. 50,000 humans died in less than 10 seconds. Rax watched the thermal readings fade to black. Broadcast this to all human resistance groups. Tell them this is what happens when they refuse to surrender. Tell them we can do this to every mountain, every bunker, every hiding place on their planet. The message was transmitted on every frequency. But the response was not what Rax expected. Admiral Hayes stood in the deep command bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, watching the tactical displays that showed the destruction of the Colorado complex. 50,000 people, families who had been evacuated from Denver, engineers who had been working on captured alien technology, children who had been learning to fight, all dead in 10 seconds. Admiral, we are receiving communications from Resistance. Cells worldwide, her communications officer reported. They all want to know what our response will be. Hayes closed her eyes for a moment. She had been a career military officer for 30 years. She believed in rules of engagement, laws of war, protection of non-combatants. Everything she had sworn to uphold had just been incinerated from space. "Put me on all channels," she said. Quietly, every human resistance fighter on Earth stopped what they were doing to listen. In hidden bunkers, mountain caves, subway tunnels, and forest camps, millions of people waited for her words. "This is Admiral Hayes, United Earth Defense Command. As of this moment, all previous rules of engagement are suspended. All protective protocols for non-combatant aliens are terminated. All considerations of proportional response are canceled." Her voice was calm, but every person listening could hear the rage underneath. "They have chosen to murder our civilians from orbit. They have declared that no human life has value. Very well, they have taught us a valuable lesson about the nature of this conflict." Hayes looked around the command center. Every face showed the same expression. Not fear, not sorrow. Pure, cold hatred. From this moment forward, this is not a war. This is extermination. No prisoners will be taken. No mercy will be shown. No alien will leave this system alive. They wanted to teach us about total war. Class is now in session. The response was immediate and global. Dr. Lisa Wong had been working on captured alien technology for weeks, trying to understand their computer systems and communication networks. Now she had a different project. She was learning to track alien supply ships back to their home worlds. "I have identified their staging area," she reported to Admiral Hayes. 3 star systems away. They have a major supply base with civilian populations. How many? Approximately 2 million aliens. Mostly support personnel, families of military units, administrators. Hayes did not hesitate. "Send the coordinates to Strike Team Alpha." Strike Team Alpha consisted of 12 humans who had learned to pilot captured alien ships. They had been practicing for this moment for 3 weeks, waiting for the right target. Now they had it. Captain Torres was no longer hunting in the Montana wilderness. He was aboard an alien destroyer that had been captured intact 2 weeks earlier. The human engineering teams had learned to operate it by studying the dead crew and reverse engineering the control systems. "Jump coordinates received," reported his navigator, a former airline pilot named Williams. 3 days travel time to target. Torres looked around the bridge at his crew, former teachers, mechanics, students, and retirees who had learned to operate technology that was centuries ahead of Earth's capabilities. They were no longer defending their home. They were taking the war to the enemy. "Execute jump," Torres ordered. On Earth, the extermination campaign began in earnest. The Dominion forces had been scattered across the planet in small, fortified bases. They thought the defensive positions would protect them from human attacks. Instead, the bases became death traps. In the Australian outback, former mining engineer Robert Stone led a team that had been preparing a special welcome for the aliens. They had spent 2 weeks laying charges throughout the underground mine system near the alien base. "Structural analysis is complete," Stone told his team. "When we trigger the charges, the entire plateau will collapse. Nothing in that base will survive." The alien base held 8,000 soldiers. They were completely unaware that the ground beneath them had been turned into a carefully calculated demolition project. Stone pressed the detonator. The explosion was visible from orbit. An entire mountain collapsed into itself, taking the alien base and everyone in it down into a hole that would become a lake within the year. Similar attacks occurred simultaneously around the world. In the Amazon rainforest, where humans had spent weeks preparing the jungle itself as a weapon. In the Sahara Desert, where oil drilling equipment had been converted into massive flamethrowers, in the Himalayas, where avalanches buried alien positions under millions of tons of snow and ice. But the most devastating attack happened in space. Strike Team Alpha arrived at the alien staging area to find a massive supply base orbiting a gas giant. Hundreds of ships, millions of tons of supplies, and 2 million alien civilians who had never expected to see combat. Target analysis complete, reported Williams. The base is undefended. They have no military ships in the system. Torres studied the tactical display. 2 million lives, families, children, non-combatants who had nothing to do with the invasion of Earth. He thought about the 50,000 humans who had died in the Colorado bombardment. All weapons, fire at will, leave nothing intact. The human ships, built by aliens who had never imagined their technology would be used against them, systematically destroyed the supply base. 2 million aliens died in the next hour. The base was completely annihilated, along with enough supplies to support the Earth invasion for 6 months. But Strike Team Alpha was not finished. Navigation. Plot a course to their home world, Torres ordered. We have more lessons to deliver. Supreme. Commander Rax received the news of the supply-based destruction while dealing with reports of simultaneous attacks on Earth. His military advisors were in complete panic. Sir, we have lost contact with 17 ground bases in the last 4 hours, his tactical officer reported. The humans appear to be launching coordinated attacks on all our positions simultaneously. What about reinforcements from the home fleets? Sir, that is the problem. The supply base attack has crippled our logistics. We cannot maintain current force levels without resupply. And now we have confirmed reports of human ships operating in Dominion space. Rax stared at the tactical displays. In 6 weeks, this primitive species had gone from crude resistance fighters to interstellar raiders. They had learned to use Dominion technology better than some species that had possessed it for centuries. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human leadership. Put it through. Admiral Hayes appeared on the communication screen. Behind her, Rax could see human technicians operating captured Dominion equipment. Commander Rax, she said, calmly. I wanted to thank you for the lesson you taught us today. We had been fighting with restraint, trying to follow the rules of civilized warfare. But you showed us that such concepts do not apply to this conflict. Rax felt something cold settling in his stomach. You taught us that this is not a war between militaries. It is a war between species. You taught us that civilian casualties are acceptable tactics. You taught us that total destruction is a valid strategic goal. Hayes smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Rax had ever seen. We are excellent students, Commander. We have learned your lessons well. In fact, we are already applying them to your supply bases, your colonies, and your home worlds. We wanted to let you know that your educational program has been a complete success. The transmission ended. Rax stood in silence, surrounded by his panicking staff. For the first time in 400 years of conquest, he understood that the Dominion might not win this war. They had awakened something that was beyond their understanding or control. They had tried to teach humans about total war. The humans had learned too well. The first Dominion homeworld died on a Tuesday. Captain Torres watched from the bridge of his captured destroyer as the planet's surface burned. His strike team had spent 3 days systematically destroying every military installation, every government center, every communications hub. What remained were scattered settlements filled with alien civilians who had never imagined that war could reach their home. Sir, we are detecting surrender broadcasts from the surface, reported his communications officer. Torres had heard the same broadcasts from the previous 4 worlds his team had visited. Desperate pleas for mercy, offers of complete capitulation. Promises that the Dominion would withdraw from Earth immediately. Ignore them, Torres said quietly. Continue targeting civilian population centers. His crew worked in silence. They were no longer the same people who had left Earth 3 months ago. The former teacher who operated the weapon systems no longer hesitated before firing on schools. The mechanic who handled navigation no longer looked away when entire cities disappeared in plasma fire. They had become something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Sir, planet is now uninhabitable. Estimated survivors less than 1% of original population. Torres nodded and turned to his navigator. Plot a course to the next system. We have 11 more worlds to visit. This scene was repeated across Dominion space. Human strike teams, operating captured alien ships with ruthless efficiency, were systematically exterminating every Dominion world they could find. They had learned alien technology faster than any species in galactic history. More importantly, they had learned to use it without the moral restraints that limited other civilizations. On Earth, the war had already been. One Admiral Hayes walked through the ruins of what used to be the largest Dominion base on the planet. The alien fortification had been built to house 50,000 soldiers. Now it was a crater filled with melted metal and scattered bones. The final battle had lasted 6 hours, not because the aliens fought well, but because it took that long to hunt down every survivor hiding in the wreckage. No prisoners had been taken. No mercy had been shown. Admiral, we have confirmation from Strike Teams Bravo through Hotel, her aide reported. All Dominion ground forces on Earth have been eliminated. Total enemy casualties, 3 million soldiers. Human casualties, 47,000. Hayes nodded absently. The numbers no longer mattered. What mattered was the lesson humanity had learned about itself during these 4 months of war. They were very, very good at killing. What is the status of our deep space operations? 12 strike teams are currently operating in Dominion space. They have successfully eliminated 7 home worlds. Estimated alien casualties are approaching 50 million. Hayes felt no satisfaction at the numbers, no pride in the victory, just cold certainty about what needed to be done. And the remaining Dominion fleet? Supreme Commander Rax is attempting to rally survivors at their core system. Intelligence estimates he has maybe 200 ships left out of the original 3,000. 200 ships. Once, that would have seemed like an overwhelming force. Now, it was just another target to be eliminated. Across the galaxy, the scattered remnants of the Dominion fleet had gathered at their oldest colony, a heavily fortified system that had been their capital for 800 years. Supreme Commander Rax stood in the command center of his flagship, surrounded by the few officers who had survived the human onslaught. Status report, he ordered, though he already knew it would be devastating. Sir, we have lost contact with 11 of our 12 home worlds. The humans appear to be conducting systematic extermination campaigns. No survivors, no infrastructure left intact. Rax had commanded the largest military force in galactic history. Now he was hiding in his own territory, hoping the humans would not find him before he could figure out how to stop them. What about diplomatic contact? Surely they will accept surrender. His communications officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, we have sent surrender offers to every human command frequency we can identify. They do not respond to diplomatic communications. At all? No, sir. They only broadcast one message. It repeats continuously on all channels. Rax knew what it would be, but he asked anyway. What message? No survivors. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Rax had spent his entire career studying the art of war, the strategies of conquest, the psychology of surrender. The humans seemed to operate by completely different rules. They were not trying to conquer the Dominion. They were not interested in capturing territory or resources. They were simply killing every alien they could find, methodically and efficiently, until none remained. Sir, we are detecting human ships entering the system. Rax felt his stomach drop. How many? Approximately 30 vessels. All appear to be modified Dominion ships operated by human crews, 30 ships against 200. Under normal circumstances, it would be no contest, but nothing about this war had been normal. Sir, the human ships are not approaching in battle formation. They appear to be spreading out to surround the system. Rax realized what was happening. The humans were not planning to fight his fleet. They were planning to trap it. Captain Torres studied the tactical display from his flagship. The remaining Dominion forces were clustered around their core world like frightened animals. 200 ships, probably 500,000 aliens, all that remained of an empire that had once ruled 12 star systems. "Analysis complete, sir," reported his tactical officer. "Enemy fleet is in defensive formation around the planet. They appear to be waiting for us to attack." Torres smiled grimly. After 4 months of fighting aliens, he had learned to think like them. They still expected humans to follow conventional military doctrine. Attack the strongest point. Fight for control of strategic positions. Win through superior tactics and firepower. But humans had evolved beyond conventional warfare. "Launch Phase 1, Torres ordered. Phase 1 was not an attack on the alien fleet. It was an attack on everything else in the system. Human ships spread out to target mining stations, supply depots, communication relays, and orbital platforms. Within 2 hours, every piece of infrastructure that supported the alien fleet had been destroyed. "Phase 2, Torres ordered. Phase 2 targeted the planet itself, not the military installations or the alien fleet protecting it. The cities, the civilian population centers, the places where alien families lived and worked and raised their children." Supreme Commander Rax watched in horror as his home world burned. The humans were not trying to defeat his fleet. They were demonstrating that his fleet was irrelevant. They could destroy everything he was trying to protect while he watched helplessly. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." Rax almost refused to listen, but he needed to understand what he was dealing with. The face that appeared on his screen was unremarkable. Middle-aged human, average height, brown hair. He could have been a farmer or a shopkeeper. Instead, he was the most dangerous military commander in galactic history. "Commander Rax," Torres said calmly, "I wanted to speak with you before we finish this." "What do you want?" Rax asked. "I want you to understand something. When your people came to Earth, you thought you were conquering another primitive species. You thought we would surrender when we saw your superior numbers and technology." Torres paused, looking directly into the camera. "You did not understand what humans are. We are not like the other species you conquered. We did not evolve to be civilized. We evolved to be predators." Behind Torres, Rax could see humans working efficiently at their stations. They moved with the focused intensity of pack hunters who had cornered their prey. "Every aspect of human evolution has been shaped by our ability to kill. We hunted mammoths to extinction with stone tools. We created weapons that could destroy our own planet. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war." Torres leaned forward, and Rax saw something in his eyes that made him step backward from the screen. "You thought you could teach us about conquest, about violence, about total war. But, Commander, we invented those concepts. We wrote the manual you have been trying to follow." The transmission paused while plasma fire lit up the planet's surface below. "Your species has ruled 47 others through superior technology and overwhelming force. Congratulations. You met the 48th species and learned what happens when you threaten something that evolution designed specifically to kill." Torres stood up, and Rax could see other humans in the background. Men and women who had spent 4 months learning to operate technology that was centuries beyond their civilization's capabilities, who had adapted to interstellar warfare faster than species that had been spacefaring for millennia. "We are not conquering your empire, Commander. We are exterminating it. Every world, every colony, every ship, every alien who participated in the invasion of Earth. We will hunt you across the galaxy until none of you remain. Rax found his voice. But surely you can see that we surrender. The war is over. We withdraw from Earth completely. Torres smiled. It was the expression a wolf might wear while looking at a sheep. Commander, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This stopped being a war the moment you killed 50,000 humans from orbit. This became something much simpler. The human captain pressed a button on his console, and Rax's tactical displays lit up with new contacts. Hundreds of human ships approaching from every direction. Ships that had been built in the past 4 months using captured alien technology and human ingenuity. This became an extinction event. The final battle lasted 18 minutes. Not because the Dominion fleet fought well, but because it took that long for the humans to systematically destroy every alien ship in the system. Supreme Commander Rax died when his flagship was torn apart by weapons that his own species had created. His last thought was a terrible understanding of what the Dominion had awakened. Humanity had not just won the war, they had evolved into something that even the monsters of the galaxy feared. Admiral Hayes received the final reports in her command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain. The Dominion had been completely eliminated. Every world, every ship, every alien who had participated in the invasion. The human strike teams were now hunting scattered refugees across the galaxy, ensuring that no trace of the Empire remained. Admiral, we are receiving communications from other galactic civilizations, her communications officer reported. They want to establish diplomatic relations. Hayes was not surprised. Word of humanity's capabilities had spread quickly through galactic civilization. Species that had never contacted Earth before were suddenly very interested in friendship treaties. What is their general message? They want to assure us that they have no hostile intentions toward Earth. Several species are offering tribute and requesting protection from their neighbors. Hayes nodded slowly. The galaxy had learned the same lesson as the Dominion. Humans were not another species to be conquered or ignored. They were the apex predator in a universe full of prey. Prepare a standard response, Hayes ordered. Tell them that Earth has no interest in conquest or expansion. We simply want to be left alone. She paused, thinking about the past 4 months and what humanity had become. But make sure they understand the alternative if they choose not to leave us alone. The message that went out to every civilization in the galaxy was simple. Earth was now a forbidden world. Approach at your own risk. The species that lived there had proven they were willing and able to eliminate any threat, no matter how large or technologically advanced. In the months that followed, space around Earth became the most peaceful region in the galaxy. Trade routes were redirected to avoid the Sol system. Military fleets gave Earth a wide berth. Entire civilizations updated their star charts to mark the human home world as a place that should never be visited. They had wanted war with Earth. They had gotten exactly what they asked for. And now they were extinct.